All right, let's delve into the huge topic of what is that? There we go. As we like it, less is more. Okay. This is honestly, I hate cliches, but is one that continues to be used. It goes round and round. It could mean more, less, less, more. It could mean so many things. I feel like there's so many ways to infer this that it gets difficult to understand. So I'm going to try to break down some of the ways that when less means more. So, um, in my last illustration, I drew a scale that looked like this. And the lower 30% weighs more than the greater 70%. The woman is more important than the man in a lot of ways. Her workload is less, but more value in the relationship. So that's kind of where that comes from, I think. One thing that I will say is typically when a man does say the terms less is more, whatever you were doing right here just before he said that, you should do less of that. Whatever that was, do less of that. Typically, um, when a guy is moved to say something like less is more, or things of this kind of nature, kind of, what's the word? Not acronyms, but whatever, roundabout ways of saying things is kind of gently breaking the ice about an idea or a concept. Um, so less, um, I don't know, things that you think I should like, less socks and birthday ties, um, less birthday cards, less notes, unless but your guy may be different than me, who knows? But they're just things that happen for me that I don't need them to feel love, right? So I know you love me, I know, but uh, a man doesn't really need to feel it from you because he produces love, right? A man produces love. And as we know in the law of attraction, kind of what you send out isn't necessarily what you, I guess the law of, not attraction, the law of economic relationship or relationship economics, I'll say. I'm kind of just going off on a whim here, but what you put out is not what you want to return. What we want in return is the capital R. Okay, so less loving, more respecting. The love and respect differ in a lot of ways in that love is typically something that you want to go up on a mountaintop and shout on a megaphone. You want to do these grandiose gestures, flowers and food and dates and cards and, just things like that. Whereas respect is typically more of a subtle move, and it typically appears in times of disagreement. When two people are disagreeing, you can see how the one respects the other. Okay, this would be the girl. This would be the bro. Like, hey Arnold. So love and respect are different. They look different. They feel different. They flow different. They have different functions. When a dude gives out love, he doesn't want it in return. That's bad economy. Okay, I have here that when you're trying to understand less is more or anything about that your partner asks about your partner, you should ask questions that are yes, no questions. Do you like when I fill in the blank. Okay? That is a way that you can gauge if something is working or not working. Typically, my style of loving is that I love the plus and the minus. Okay? So you never be perfect, okay? But you are you, and that's perfect to me, okay? It has to be because I want you to be who you are and I want to be in relationship with you. Okay? But in your imperfections, you could ask me, do you like when I blank? And I can straight up say yes or no. No, I don't prefer that. And that'll be a subtle enough but honest enough answer. You could ask, should I do more, and fill in your blank. And then again, I could say yes or no. That's fine. You don't have to, okay? Um, Remembering when you converse with a man, the reason why they made two-seat or two-door trucks, is so that a guy can talk shoulder to shoulder, okay? This is why when you go for a drive with your significant other, you have better conversation because you're talking shoulder to shoulder. When you want to get info from your man, it would do you better to not talk nose to nose. Those are noses right there. Okay? This is the girl here. Okay? This is the bro here. Hey, Arnold. Okay? Talking face to face is, as we like to call it, confrontational. And we don't want to be in conflict with the ones we love. Okay? We don't put conflict and love in the same box. That is what women do, I think. I don't understand how you can do that, but it's probably because of the way your brains are wired. But no, we can't do loving and conflict at the same time. We need to separate those things. So, in order to have a meaningful relationship with us, it has to be non confrontational. This is confrontation. This is non confrontation. Okay? So, when you want to ask, do I or should I do more of this? Don't grab him by the face and look at him in his eyes and ask him. Matter of fact, it's best that you maybe even be laying in the bed. And it doesn't have to be about sex, but there you are, laying in the bed together. Don't look over at him and say something, because that's still too direct. Men like to just talk and hear each other. We don't like to, you know, look at that, just facing up, talking, chilling. This is a relaxed conversation. And if you don't believe me, practice with your man. Practice talking to him without looking at him. You notice he's actually listening to you. It's kind of weird. I think it's harder for us to hear you when you talk directly at us because it excites a different side of us. And that confrontational, conflictive side of us, is ready to go to war. This is a boxing glove. Okay? So, we don't want to fight with you. So, that's something to consider. So, when you do want to get some information from men, you have to see, as women focus so much on how things are said and not what is said, if you come in a confrontational way, it doesn't get the result that you're looking for. And we know that usually because we feel it not what we say, but how we say it, that's heard. So if you were to ask me something like some kind of question that's like not a yes no question, like tell me What do you need me to do? This is the type of question that you need. This kind of open-ended question, if you ask that, the answer is typically going to be a shy, nothing. I don't need anything. I'm good, because this sounds like a trap. This sounds like whatever we say is going to be taken wrong, and it's going to be heavily scrutinized, and it won't just be a simple adjustment. It will be almost a war, these type of questions. So we don't want to fall for those, okay? So when we respond, we typically, when we know it's going to be some type of a bad news situation, we try to respond in that calm, sober like voice. But it really doesn't matter what we say, because it's how we say it that gets misunderstood, and then the words don't really matter, okay? And that's a difficulty in understanding communication. So there is a message sent. There's a message that is received that might be different. And then there's a feedback that lets you know whether they heard this, or maybe they heard something completely different over here. So that's just kind of how conversation works. As the leader of conversation, wherever you stand, you need to understand this model that you can Google, and you need to understand how to lead conversations with your partner. Okay, so don't just go into the conversation with the idea that the way I talk is the only way we communicate. No, in fact, it is the way that the leaser of the links communicates. That is how we best communicate. Does that make sense? The weakest link is kind of where we communicate to. If you can't handle big words, like if I'm talking to a child, right? A little kid can't handle 4-syllable words, then how am I going to communicate with a little kid, okay? If I got the little homie here and I'm telling him about, quadratics of something else, and I'm hitting him with the 4-syllable words, he's not picking up any of that. So I'm just shooting the stuff all over his head, which means I'm not able to get my point across to him because I'm too busy trying to put my knowledge or skills in his face, basically. If I'm talking to somebody, a young kid like this, I'm going to use 2-syllable words and 1-syllable words, words that he can understand and respond to, so that we can get a message across. Don't do this. Yes, do that. Are you hungry? Things like that. In the same sense, women communicate different than men. And as the leader of a relationship myself, I see it plumb necessary to figure out how she communicates. If she's the type that has a wave of emotions that forces her to speak, I need to make sure that whatever she says, I filter. This is a strainer filter. I filter it to find the gems of what the real issue is. Okay, so she's got a wave of stuff pouring into this. At no point right here am I necessarily responding until I've analyzed each one of the little nuggets, and then I ask, does this mean? And you can put a blank on the end of that. This lets her know that I'm giving feedback to the things she said. This would be now the new leader position, the receiver of information. Okay, and how I receive her information, filter it, and send back feedback is a completion of the loop of communication. Okay. So the less is more thing is really about, I would say, focusing on and asking the questions that it takes to understand your partner. Okay? You may have learned things from this person, this person, this person, that person in your past, but you're with me now. And I don't like him, or any of what they do. None of that matters to me. It's a new program, right? So on this program, your old tricks may not be as helpful as you thought. Okay? I feel like I'm forgetting something in the less is more conversation. So, yeah, basically, I think that's it in a nutshell. I think I stayed on topic a little better this time. Yeah, let me know what you think.